officially call the meeting to order, Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, November 17th, 2018 meeting. We want to thank everyone for coming, delegates, alternates, as well as the community that's listening in, as well as Facebook Live. We do not have our recording secretary here today, and I do not have a roll call sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take roll, but I'm just going to have, when I call your MPU, then if you could raise your hand and state your name and that you're here. Okay, NPUA, delegate and alternate. No delegate or alternate. NPUB, delegate and alternate.
Richard Rao here.
NPUC, delegate alternate. NPUD, delegate alternate.
Joe Martin and Wilson were both here.
Melissa. So that every time, Donna, I'm gonna call you a Michelle.
I'll just change my name.
Oh, no, don't do that. I always remember your last name though. NPUE, delegate alternate. NPUF, delegate alternate.
Debbie Skipczynski, delegate and chair.
And there is no sheet. Yes, there is. NPUG,
Oliver Reynolds, chair.
Ola. NPUH, delegate alternate. NPUI, delegate alternate. Jennifer Freeman present. Eunice Glover present. NPUJ, delegate alternate.
MPUJ, and Dickerson vice chair.
NPUK, delegate alternate. NPUL, delegate alternate. Present. NPUM, delegate alternate. Thank you. NPUN, delegate alternate. NPUO, delegate alternate. NPUP, delegate alternate. NPUQ, delegate alternate.
Eric Toomer, delegate and chair-elect.
Congratulations. NPUR, delegate alternate.
Anthony Robinson, chair, delegate.
Congratulations. NPUS, delegate alternate. NPUT,
Terry Ross, NPUT delegate.
Your incoming chair, congratulations, Mr. Ross.
No, we haven't held elections.
Oh, y'all's are in December? Okay, my apologies. NPUV, delegate alternate. NPW, delegate alternate. NPUX, delegate alternate. NPUY, delegate.
Dana Scott, you left the room when you see her.
And NPUC, delegate alternate. Ann Phillips. Okay, count. Let me see. Okay, thanks, Mrs. Scott. We have a quorum, we have 13. Very good. Okay, so we can move along here on our agenda today. At this point, we have taken roll call. I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt today's meeting agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda?
Okay,
Second.
all right, it's been probably seconded, motion and seconded. Can I get a raise of hands of those who approve the agenda for today? Ms. Phillips is going to count for us. 13. It's unanimous. Okay. Also, I would ask for a motion for meeting minutes from last month's meeting, but I did not receive those. So we will have to get those from Ms. Hubbard and perhaps have them approved next month's meeting. What you do see on the back of your agenda is minutes from our executive committee meeting in October. Which don't need to be approved. At this time, I'd like to mention that we do still have vacant seats on the Beltline Tax Allocation District Committee. So if they are interested, if there are any residents who are interested, you can please email apabatlanta@gmail.com. You can send a letter of interest as well as your resume. We've announced it several months. We've also posted it on our social media platforms, and so we'll continue to do so. Also, you will see on the agenda that Mr. Martin's term expires at the end of this year. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to the nominating committee, the chair, Eunice Glover, as well as Ola Reynolds and Mr. Carr, to preside over the election of officers for 2019. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve in this role. As you mentioned, the nomination committee consists of Ola Reynolds. step up, and Steve Carr. Okay. And what we're going to do, the process, we will be passing out the ballots, and we will give you an opportunity to vote for those who self-nominated and add write-ins. And then we will collect the ballot, and the nomination committee will total up the feedback that you have given to us. Okay, thank you.
You can clarify
Yes.
what we should be doing on the ballots.
Yes. You've got a ballot for each position. In some cases, you have a name where the person responded to the request for re-election. If you want to re-elect that individual, check the box or put a check next to their name. You have a section called write-in candidates. And if you're interested in having someone who is a member of APAB, write their name in, but circle around and talk with them to make sure it is something that they wish to do. Okay?
There is one ballot that does not have a box. Do we circle that individual?
I'll put a check next to the name. If there is a name there, put a check next to the name. Yes.
Okay, the next steps?
The next steps is that we will be collecting the ballot, and then we will go off and tally the ballot and come back and tell you the feedback. And so if you have completed your ballot, please see me, Ola Reynolds, or Steve Carr.
Ms. Glover,
Yes.
do you have a count on how many ballots you set out?
You mean that I've handed out?
Yes.
I've handed out ballots to the APAB delegates here.
Okay.
Make sure that only the delegate,
Only the delegates who have
but
been
if the
asked.
alternate is here, then they can vote.
Yes.
Only one
Only
per
ballot.
MP.
You should have 14 ballots.
All right, I have a general announcement or a question for the whole body, and that is, do we have all the ballots? No. Okay, because the committee is ready to chomp and get to work, continue our work. So, and whoever has a ballot out, let me know, and I'll help you for it.
We're going to go ahead and resume with our meeting. However, I want to make a clarification. One ballot per NPU. So if the delegate's here, then they get a ballot. So we should have 14 ballots. So if a delegate and an alternate is here, the alternate should not get a ballot. Okay. We'll resume with our meeting as they continue to, the nominating committee collects ballots and does the tabulating, tallying. Okay. Where are we? We are at board and task force reports. Do we have Louis Woodson with us? He's not here today. we have Mr. Martin here. Any other members of the TADAC, Beltline TADAC here? Mr. Martin, would you like to give us a brief update?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, Beltline,
Your mic's not on.
oh, sorry about that. There we go. Beltline, TEDAC Executive Committee met this past Tuesday, 11/13. The full committee will not meet until 11/27. We discussed various administrative matters for the coming year, and as was pointed out earlier, I will be rolling off of TEDAC at the end of this year and need to be replaced. I think anything else very exciting happened. We'll be having our retreat in either January or February, but we don't call it a retreat, I think we call it a strategic planning meeting or something like that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. Moving right along, we have Mr. Hopkins. Mr. Hopkins?
He just walked out, he was in here.
Okay.
He's still here.
Sandra Bush, Dr. Gerald Newman.
Madam President,
Yes,
excuse
ma'am.
me, please. Owen Reynolds, nominating committee. We have one outstanding ballot. We supposed to have 14, we only have 13.
One of them was mine, I'm an alternate, I cannot vote, and I marked it up, so I.
That's it right there, probably. Is that right there, Mr. Hopkins? Just right there. Yes.
Sorry.
All right. Mr. Hopkins, would you like to give us an update on Atlanta Citizens Review Board? Is there anything important that you want to mention to us? I mean, you don't have to give an important report, there's nothing to report. Okay?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Dr. Newmark's not here, Barbara's not here, Mr. Thomas not here, Lindsay. Okay, Mr. Martin, committee reports.
Okay. So APAD, CEHR, and Zoning and Land Use Committees met on the 12th of November. I was the only person present at either of those meetings, and therefore we did not have a quorum and did not move anything out of committee. Matters that I can't say I discussed, I guess I thought about at the CHR meeting. As you probably heard, the Gulch proposal was passed by City Council earlier this month. There is a movement afoot by the Red Light Gulch Coalition to challenge the validation of the bonds in court. They are trying to raise money to support legal fees, and you can find their information on the internet. We did not discuss the draft resolution for developer seminars, which had been proposed by Steve Carr because he was not there. I did not think about, yes, because he was not there. Let's see, several items on the City Council CHR agenda, not of great import. In zoning and land use, still working on the draft resolution for boilerplate zoning conditions. If anyone has any suggestions on that, I would appreciate them reaching out to me. If you can't make it to the meeting, please send me an email on the matter. IMIX and Phase 2 zoning update, both were delayed. They were supposed to be on the ZRB agenda in November. Instead, I'm told they're going to be on the ZRB agenda on December the 6th. We did not pass any resolutions with regard to those. My NPU voted no on both for various reasons. And we are still in zoning and land use working on a draft resolution regarding assigning street addresses to all parcels of land in the city so that they can be identified for various purposes. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. And also, thank you so much for being so faithful in attending your committee meetings. Just thought we needed a laugh today. I'm happy today. Okay, Mr. Ross, committee on council.
Hi, Terry Ross, CBT, chairing committee on council. We met this morning. Old biz, we are still working on the parking fees, and someone has an action item towards that, so that matter has not been put to bed, which is still trying to get everyone reimbursed for their parking coming down here Saturday. got a prize for that. Planning has graciously provided us with raw attendance data for MPUs A through M. And so we've not collected that data. We have interns working on it, putting it on a spreadsheet so that we'll hopefully have a report for you before the end of the year. Planning promised to give me N through Z within the next week. Okay, so then we'll have all the attendance data so that we can start putting out some results. Okay. Let's see. Oh, we, a committee on council, would like to ask the bylaws committee to clarify officer term limits and successions. It potentially could have been an issue this year, but it was not. But in order to avoid this in the future, we recommend that the bylaws committee clarify this, the officer term limits, whether they're elected or appointed, and that kind of thing. So it's stated in the bylaws, it puts to rest all the conflict. In addition to that, Committee on Council is asking for APAD officer eligibility to be stated in the bylaws to include past standing committee chairs and presidents or committee members eligible to become APAD officers. There was an issue on light rail going onto Hamilton Road. Hamilton Road has been stated as being the busiest transit corridor in the city of Atlanta. And so we don't understand why there would be any pushback on that. But Jack Grundler has agreed to, through the Open Records Act, to request the study that Marta and the city of Atlanta did to arrive at why light rail should go on Hamilton Road. So we hopefully will be sharing that with you once Jack collects it. Okay. Let's see. Oh, finally, December 11th, 2018, Atlanta's Community Development and Human Services Committee will hold a meeting, their usual meeting, but the City of Atlanta's Planning Department will respond to that committee's request that planning make a presentation on actions it has taken and plans to take relative to the city's neighborhood planning system. So that pertains directly to us. Therefore, we feel like APAD and MPU should have a presence down there. I'd like to request volunteers out of the body today, write those names down, that way it's on TV and I've got it documented. So I number one, plan to be at that meeting. The meeting is December 11th, 12:30 p.m. and it's the CDHS committee meeting. Who else would like to volunteer to be there to represent APAD and MPC? And Anita Robinson, thank you very much.
Where will it take place?
Here at City Hall. Yeah, actually in this room, thank you, Bill.
Terry, can I ask a question? Or I guess really it's a question for John. Who will be giving that presentation?
So I'm not sure, but it may be the commissioner.
You just turned your mic off.
I'm not exactly sure, but it may be the commissioner. We'll probably get him a report and he'll respond directly. I'll clarify that this week.
Okay, and so for those of us who aren't aware of any actions that have been taken as far as changes in the last year, is there something we've all missed, or will this be a pretty contentless presentation?
Again, I'm not sure. In fact, I'll have Kyle looks like he knows. Kyle Kessler.
Who else agreed to volunteer?
I did, Terry.
Jim?
Hold on one moment, let's see if we have any delegates or alternates that have any questions, comments from his report, and then we can have Mr. Kessler speak.
Sure. Mr. Ross,
Yes.
would you give me the name of that meeting again, please?
Okay.
It's the Community Development Human Services Committee, it's the regular meeting, which is on December 11th,
And what's the primary issue that they're going to be concerned about?
about an update on the integrated planning unit system
Okay.
work.
Is that work that you, Mr. Kessler, are going to be giving to the council?
That's why I rose to speak, so I was
Okay,
waiting for
go
public
ahead.
comment, but since it's germane to what's being discussed,
Go ahead.
My name is Kyle Kessler. I work at the Center for Civic Innovation. Our website address is civicatlanta.org. As part of my presentation to Republic, I was going to notify everyone excuse me, that we have been asked to give an update at that meeting. I know that the planning department has a regular quarterly update at that meeting, but since we have been working on an audit review evaluation of the NPU system, we have been asked to give a 10-minute presentation to the committee at that time. So I presume, based upon what I know, that we are working with the planning department, but I don't know that they have done anything beyond our sort of work with them. And just to lead into that, the reason that we wanted to have this meeting and agreed to have the presentation, as I mentioned at the last APAD meeting, that on November the 29th, which is a Thursday after Thanksgiving, we have a listening session scheduled with current NPU leaders. So whether you're chair, vice chair, whether you're on the board, we want to meet with representatives from each of the NPUs. We have sent out correspondence, we've had communication. There are people, there are NPUs represented in this room today that we don't have official RSVPs from. So I would like to speak with anyone who wants to confirm with me whether or not they're going to have representation at that meeting to make sure that we get as many bodies in the room as possible. If folks can attend, we're going to continue to follow up and provide additional opportunities. But as much as possible, we'd love to have people all in the room together to have this listening session. The planning department has agreed to show up at the beginning to sort of give their approval or buy into the process, but we are not asking them to remain through the listening session, so folks can be as perfectly honest and open regarding challenges, opportunities they see with city elected officials, city employees, regarding other things that they see going on in their neighborhoods. We will have additional opportunities throughout the next year to meet with neighborhood association leaders, with other folks that currently are engaged in NPUs. But we know that as leadership is changing between now and the top of next year, that folks that might be transitioning out or might be in different capacities, but we make sure we get them in the room to understand, sort of with that history that they have with the NPU system, that we can capture that before it's too late.
Mr. Tillman?
First, I'd like to state my approval of your efforts, but I guess I don't understand part of the initiation process by which you're operating under, and I also don't understand how planning fits into this. Did planning request you to do this? And if planning did do this, why wasn't APAD brought in? And why is, and I guess the second question would be, why is planning seeming to be partnering with you if they did not request it, which I think is the case? And there's something that doesn't seem transparent to me in this process. It sounds almost as if you are there's a very avant-garde process by which your group, your organization decided you needed to look into the NPU system and revamp it without the benefit of the NPU system asking you to help us make us better, or planning to, or the city of Atlanta. And if I'm wrong, please correct me.
So I do not recall that there has been an official request from planning, from city council, from any particular organization that said we expect or would request that the Center for Civic Innovation do that work. It is something that, as part of our larger body of work regarding community participation, education, involvement, that we understand that this is the formal process that the city's put in place since the 1970s, in which citizens, average citizens, are able to engage with their elected officials, with planning processes, with other decision making. It happens here at City Hall. So we sort of threw it out there and said, hey, we want to work on this. We're going to start doing it on our own, not waiting for an official edict from the mayor, from council, from anybody else. As we have gone along, there have been numerous reports and discussions. There's objectives and goals from the CHS committee this year that have this as their top priority. We concur. We think it's a major thing that should be worked on. The Resilient Area Plan was passed last year, also called out for a review of the NPU process. We are, I guess, sort of feeling the zeitgeist, and because there has not been some other entity that stepped up that said, we want to help lead the effort. We are not trying to dictate what's going to happen, but we want to be a convener to get the folks in the room, to have the conversation, which is why I'm looking to the 29th. Before we officially launch anything, we want to have the NPU leaders in the room so we can share what we have learned so far, but we're not proposing these solutions, but to make sure that the folks that are currently engaged and involved have an opportunity to make this process their own and can support each other in making it happen, rather than us saying, this is what you need to do to fix your NPU system, because it's all our NPU system.
What I have a minor problem with, and believe me, it's minor because I think it's easily corrected by being extremely transparent in the process and the NPUs and regular citizens be involved. And that is that you're coming up with conclusions that were not vetted by the community and presenting them as a best practice, as I see it, whether it's interpreted that way or if it's intended to be that way. I have a little bit of resistance to anything that is presented with, to benefit, well, I'll just use an analogy. You cannot come to my house and sit there for 20 minutes and say, this is the best practice for your family, okay? So there's a resentment from me in terms of it needs to be corrected and input needs to be much greater. And we cannot have a top-level organization with power, money, and probably backing of some politicals that we aren't aware of to present something to say, I'm going to benefit your family. That I resist. Thank you.
So I apologize if there's been a misunderstanding, but we have absolutely no conclusions. We don't even know what the right questions are. So we have, on our own, to be able to provide better information to start the discussion, we have been doing some research, we've been having some conversations to figure out sort of how we might get started, but we have not officially launched this project. We have not had any official sort of conversations regarding what it will be. We wanted to do our homework so that on the 29th, we can present out that to the NPU leaders, we would like to work on this project in coordination with the NPU system, with APAB, with Get Started. We were not initially looking to do any sort of evaluation of APAB, but through the process so far, we've obviously learned and have come to appreciate sort of APAB's intertwining along with other departments and agencies. So the more people we can get on board with this process as we get started, and make sure we're not intentionally or unintentionally excluding anybody from the conversation, that'll help everybody along with it. So I appreciate it.
And it'll also help APAB support the NPUs because we do make up the NPUs.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and then that's the first thing. And then also the information that you sent to the council, could you also send that to APAB?
Yes, I believe it's already been sent out to the NPU chairs, but I will make sure I'll go back
APAB@atlanta@gmail.com.
forward all that to APAB. Yes.
Okay. Also, the one pager that you mentioned that you, because I did decide last month. If you could send that via email, because I can distribute that to all of the other delegates and alternate people not here at the meeting.
I will do that as well. I'll make sure there's no updates from last month. I think everything, the timeline was much further out, but if there's anything that needs to be corrected, I'll make sure we do that as well.
Very good. And can I get your email and your telephone number?
Yep. My email is Kyle, K-Y-L-E, @civicatlanta.org. And my phone number is 404-969-2696.
Thank you.
And one more thing, if it's helpful. We, as I mentioned last month, we are hiring someone to help oversee this project full-time. So if anyone here is knowledgeable of anyone in their community that wants to do extensive work on the NPU system as part of a broader sort of community engagement strategy for the city, the application is available on our website. It's open through the end of the month. So once again, civicatlanta.org. Go to opportunities, and there's careers underneath there, and then the job description is available for that.
I saw it's very extensive. A lot of great work. I saw
Yeah.
the job description, very extensive.
It is, and we'll probably need multiple people to actually do that work, but we'd like to go ahead and get started with the first person. So if you know anyone in Atlanta who's interested in it or has the skills necessary to accomplish that, please send them our way.
Will do. Ms. Phillips?
I'd like to know, how is your organization funded?
A variety of different funders. We have general membership, some average citizens in the community who support our work, and then depending upon the particular program that we're running, we get funding. Most of our work is with what we call civic entrepreneurs. So whether they be doctors, lawyers, teachers, farmers, other folks in the community who are trying to make improvements, we fund their work through whatever organization, like the Community Food Bank or the Food Well Alliance, that sort of supports that type of venture. For this particular project, we don't have a signature funder involved. It's sort of through our general funds. But we're definitely looking for potential sponsors, partners, folks that might be able to support it. But we are committed to the work regardless. So if we have to do it on the sheet, we will, but we love to have the proper resources to make sure it happens, because we know that just as the city struggles to sort of maintain the human resources necessary to attend all the meetings and sort of get the stuff out, that we don't want to be hindered by that as well. So we do have enough funding to at least get this thing started, but to make it as robust as we would like it to be, it's definitely going to take an additional effort. But I'm happy to provide whatever information that I can. I don't have it on me today, but if I get your information, I'll provide you a list of where our funding comes from. So.
Mr. Ross?
Well, I was in the midst of my committee report, and we included Cal. We're actually supporting them with the listening session. And I did that because we have a favorable outlook on their organization over the past 2 years. But Eric and Michael, that's why I always appreciate dissenting voices, because I hadn't even considered what you were talking about in terms of including the interviews and impact in the formulation of the study. And so I'm always appreciative of dissenting voices for that reason. But I believe we've got 4 volunteers signed up for the CDHS meeting: Anthony Robinson, Gloria Hawkins, Wynn, Jim Martin, and Terry Ross.
I'm going to try to make it, but there's no promise. I'm going to try.
Well, I'm gonna put your name on the list there. Okay?
December 10th, correct?
No,
I mean, 11th.
December 11th at 12:30 p.m. right here in this room here. Yes.
Could somebody send out an invitation?
Okay, you can put me on there. I'm publicly saying I'll be there and I will be. And I will, once I get there, I will announce it.
Okay.
Mr. Ross.
So I've also added Michael Hopkins, Eric Toomer, Benjamin Dickerson, and Jennifer Freeman. Very good.
Terry, I'll be there as well.
And Debbie Skopinski. Did I get it right, Debbie?
Skopczynski.
It's Skopczynski, okay.
Yay!
Okay. Very good. And yes.
Can you, for the names that you have, or can Jennifer or somebody send out an invitation, a formal invitation to that?
Absolutely. Since I asked for the volunteers, I'll take it upon our committee to do that. Okay. So Jennifer, I may need to get some email addresses from you, but I'll send you the list, okay?
And Terry, you need to give everybody the time for that meeting.
Yes, it's at 12:30. Okay. And that concludes Committee on Council reports.
Thank you, very important.
Darren, question for you. A question for you. Yeah, you had mentioned something about the bylaws and how they specify term limits.
Yes.
And you thought that they were defective in some way. I'm looking at that section now, and I guess I don't see the issue there. Could you be more specific?
Well, specifically, it came up about Jennifer, if she was eligible to run for president again or not. Because it said elected positions, but it actually needed clarification because it could be interpreted in a couple of ways.
Okay.
Because she was elected as first VP, therefore being naturally appointed with Gavin.
Okay, so the problem then would be with the parenthetical, an appointment to fill a vacant seat will not count towards the 3-term limit.
Well, I'm not sure how, but let's tighten it up so that we don't
So
go back and forth.
It would also, I mean, Are you thinking then that because she stepped up from vice presidency, that's not an appointment, that's
Well,
succession?
it can go either way, but let's state it.
Okay.
Still leaving open for debate.
I think also where the confusion came in too is me, what I communicated to other people. Because I thought that our terms were 2 years, when they're actually 3 years.
Right.
And what happened, when I mentioned this to Jim Martin, he said, no, I think our terms, and it's not just me, it's all of the officers' terms are 3 years. I look at it like this. I resumed the role of Kathy once she transitioned, okay? But I was not voted as the president.
Right.
So that's the difference, an appointment and a vote and a elected officer. And I think it does make that clear.
No,
Yes.
it's actually vague, Jennifer, that's why I'm asking bylaws to tighten it up, yes.
Okay, all right, so what we'll do is we'll add that onto our executive committee agenda for December 3rd, and we'll get it tightened up. We'll talk about what words can be tightened up.
Does it not state elected in there?
It does.
It does,
Okay.
but Jennifer
That
was
is-
elected as first vice
Yeah,
chair.
I think,
No,
She's still holding it.
I think
I don't know how you would draw that line. It's
Yeah,
not
any
tangent,
ideas, Jim?
it's not tangent to you're elected to this position. It does not carry over, and no uncertain terms does it carry over.
Well, if you
Robert's
state
rules,
that, then
Robert
that's a
rules.
done deal, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's a moot point to try to clarify something that's clear.
Okay, Eric. Okay.
I mean, your consternation, I'm not sure that everybody has that same consternation, and if you went to Robert's rules, you won't see that clarity either, that it says separate election for separate posts, because it is clear, you're being elected to serve in that.
This
I
came out,
digress.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this came out of the Committee on Council, and they tasked me to bring it to you guys. And then as I talked to the body over the last 2 months, there was some confusion as to what the position is and how it would work. So I'm asking the bylaws committee to tighten it up so that confusion is eliminated altogether. You say it's clear, and many others feel like it's clear to them going on both sides of the aisle.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
with your permission, I now conclude to
We got one more question.
Ross. Mr. Ross, you know it's not like that. Come on. Don't believe the hype of the naysayers. They haven't come in yet. Okay, I have a recommendation about that as well. I'll put it right here. Okay, where are we? We are still on committee reports. Mr. Toomer. Did you forget that you're now the kind of like interim
No,
chair of transportation?
I did not forget.
Okay, good.
But what I decided was that I would start the new year off with a formal, let's say, appointment,
Okay.
and really kind of get my sinking into the transportation, because like I said, when I took the position, it's not something that it's my particular forte, but I need a lot of remedial work to catch up on it.
Okay. Speaking of that, Mr. Carr? Oh, that's right, that's right. All right, I'm going to ask him something about Jack Condra. Okay.
Would you like me to ask him to come in for a moment?
No, that's okay. We can do it later. All right, so we're now on education and public engagement. If you look down on your agenda, you'll see the upcoming events and meetings. Also, I mentioned about continue to take suggestions for the 2019 grant, which is due December, sometime in the middle of December. Help me out, NPU chairs. When's the grant
December
application?
7th.
December 7th, okay. And so we have quite a bit of suggestions and ideas. If you would read the executive committee minutes from the October 7th meeting, there's a listing there of suggestions and recommendations. So we will continue our programming, and I will ask for you all to look at the proposed 2019 calendar and meeting events as well. Because some of those ideas are incorporated on that calendar. Our Neighborhoods Matter and Partner Awards will be December 15th. They will take place in this committee room like they did in January. And the memo for the application to all the NPUs, including the Neighborhood Association chairs, has already been sent. It was sent on the 15th. The deadline is November 30th. Raise your hand if you're an NPU chair and you received the email with the application. Okay. What about you, Jim? You had already mentioned it already that you had received it. Okay. If you all have any questions, feel free, reach out to me if you'd like. So something about that. Oh, so the list that the City of Atlanta has on their website, and this is where you could probably help. Mr. McKinley, I know you don't want any more tasks on your to-do list, but we need to see what we can do to help y'all get the neighborhood associations list, the directory updated. Because I'm gonna try to be diplomatic as possible. The same list that says 2018 is the same list from 3 or 4 years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what you guys did is you changed the year, but you didn't go back and confirm or update the contact information. I mean, I'm telling you, almost the majority of that list, their emails came back.
Yeah, in addition to us changing the year, any changes that we got from neighborhood association presidents, we also changed those. If we don't receive changes, it's a ton of neighborhoods on this. So we're all able to reach out to all of them. But if we receive a change, we update it. For example, I have a few sitting on my desk for 2019, we updated.
Right. So we can help you by maybe being proactive and contacting them and not waiting for them to contact. I get it. But if there's any way, because I'm going to just probably now that all those bounced emails, I'm going to go to the list and try to call them now. And whatever updates I get, I will communicate to you all. And it's also, and that's pretty much it, that particular director. So in any way we can help out, just let us know. That would be great. You should see a save the date for the awards. So everything's pretty much set. You can start registering. I did send an email to everyone, the actual link, so you can actually cut and paste it. And you can either send that email to your network, or you can cut and paste it on your social media platforms. We want to make sure that we have a really good turnout. Last year's, which we had in January, was a very good turnout. This room was packed. And we want to always see that, because it's an opportunity for us to recognize community champions. So that's good. As it relates to, I said that we have the awards here. We're still waiting on confirmation on where we're going to have the actual reception. So it'll either be in the old council chambers or in the mezzanine like it was a couple of years ago. And I do think that even though we really wanted to take the awards off-site, we kind of ran into some challenges with more money, because a lot of the facilities, they may give us the in-kind for the space for free, but if they don't have round tables or chairs, then we'll have to rent those. And so we'll just continue to have it here, and then perhaps the new leadership moving forward, should it be me or whomever, we can look at taking it off-site here at City Hall. If you look at the proposed calendar, does everybody have a copy of it? It says draft, and it's proposed, so if you guys will take a look at it. I do have a right for you to pay attention to the highlighted area where it says new delegate alternate and new resident orientation. This is something we've talked about for several years. How do we onboard new delegates? And also, how do we continue to expand our mission, our vision to new residents, because there are a lot of residents, as you all know, that are moving into the city of Atlanta, and they don't know what an MPU is, they don't know where it is, they've never gone to the meeting, and so that's the type of support that the APAB gives. And so we want to be able to have that opportunity to interface with them, and perhaps we can combine both of those together. And also, I think with this bylaws challenge, I think that it may make sense to not have a bylaws workshop, but we need to spend more time, particularly probably doing a retreat, kind of really going over our bylaws, just going line by line, making sure that, and I know we've done this, I think we did it maybe a couple of years ago, but I think that, you know, it doesn't hurt to kind of just massage those, that verbiage again, and just make sure if there are some issues that have come up over the years that we need to incorporate, then I believe that we should do so. Also, the highlighted areas going down into March. So we had a leadership retreat, and we also added, we attempted to do this year, but there was kind of like a conflict. We had a whole lot of city council, new council people who came in, and they were trying to decide when their retreat was going to be. And so at our executive committee meeting last night, what we decided to do was to talk to the council to find out what day in March would be good for them, and that we could possibly schedule our retreat around that time so that they can come and we can have them on the agenda. We can come meet and greet, sit down, chat with them, and talk to them about any accomplishments they've had and how we can have a closer working relationship with one another. And those are the only added things on other than what we normally have on our calendar. So if you guys will just check behind me to make sure I have the correct dates for the day and the time, and if you see any conflicts as it relates to a holiday, that we need to move something, Ann Phillips will be helping us confirm all of our locations for executive committee meetings. We want to make sure that those executive committee meetings are representative of all of the city in different locations, that we're not just having meetings on one side of town, but that we spread it throughout the city.
The suggestion on the bylaws review,
Yes.
that is a meeting within itself.
Okay.
That is more than one meeting. The last time we did that, we took extensive time to do that review. And I would suggest that we, instead of doing a meeting, we start off with receiving input from the body, requesting any type changes and having them submit that in writing, as opposed to going through and trying to read it on the spot, because that does not work too well. So that would be my suggestion on that. Then, if I may, I'd like to bring up after this meeting, if people are inclined to, the district attorney is holding a meeting across the street for public information. And if you can, just drop by and spend a couple of minutes talking about what your concerns are in terms of what relates to the DA. And that's going to go on until 2 o'clock. And it's in the, I believe it's in the courthouse building, which is the one that's, you enter on Central. If not, it's on Prior Street. I don't remember which one it is, but it's one of the two entrances. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Duly noted on the bylaws, and I do believe that whatever we have, whether it's 1 or 2 sessions, that it not be in the general meeting. So we definitely will add that onto the executive committee agenda for December 3rd. Mr. Ross?
One of the things that I did not see was the parliamentary procedure session. Is that because planning does that? Is that why it's not on the APAB calendar?
The reason why I took it off is because traditionally we've always done it, but for some reason last year and this year, planning has kind of taken us out that process. So if we want to be added, if we want it back on our calendar, then we need to work with planning because we have to coordinate it with them about what day and time it is. Yeah.
I recommend that, and let me tell you why. NPUT's bylaws committee has determined that all new officers should take the parliamentary procedure session through APAB and planning. So now that it's a requirement to be an officer at the NPUT, I'm looking for it on the calendar and I don't see it.
Right, so we can have planning, let us know when they're going to have it, and let's just reiterate that we receive the information, the flyer, in a timely manner. So that, because this year we heard about it at a meeting and it was next weekend, I think. And so that would be good, and as soon as we get that date, then we'll add it on the calendar. And also, Mr. McKinley, would you pass this down to Mr. McKinley? I'm not sure if he has a copy of this. We want to make sure you all take a look at the, oh, you do, okay. So that, just be cognizant of the dates that we already have that don't conflict with what we have already going on. Okay?
Thank you.
I think you all, I think it's normally in May. April or May. I'm not really sure, but I did delete it off. Okay.
Point of clarification, Terry, are you requesting that we add that to the calendar as a to be determined date?
We control the date.
That's a good question. I don't think.
Get the date, then we add it.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Make it a calendar item.
Sure.
And then say to be determined.
Sure, that makes sense. And that way folks are aware that it's coming.
So you want me to just put a
I like
note?
that, thanks, Eric.
Okay, so put a note down at the bottom, not in any particular month, because I don't know, but just a note down at the bottom saying to determine the parliamentary procedures training. I can do that. I'll just add it down here. All right, so this is in draft format. Go ahead and if you have any suggestions, recommendations, you can email them to apabatlanta@gmail.com. I will then we'll make the changes and then it will be the final. All right. Our next executive committee meeting is December 5th, 4 to 5, locations to be determined. As soon as we hear back from, we're hoping that it will either be at the Metropolitan Library or the Buckhead Library. Okay? Nominating committee, you already report? Ms. Glover? Ms. Reynolds, okay?
Okay, first off, I'd like to thank APAB for its service. I would also like to thank the nomination committee for the hard work they did and the strong commitment behind it. I would also like to share with you a quote. Volunteers do not necessarily have the time, they just have the heart. You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give. Volunteers are the human beings on the face of the earth who reflect this nation's compassion, unselfish caring, patience, and just plain loving one another. You are inspirational, the things that you do for the city of Atlanta, and thank you from the committee. We will start with the parliamentarian position. Overwhelmingly, Jim Martin was given the majority of the votes. He will be the next elected parliamentarian. Let's give him a hand. Okay, Financial Secretary Ann Phillips, a huge number of votes. She will be re-elected as the Financial Secretary. Let's give her a hand.
Point of procedure.
Yes.
Is it not appropriate according to Robert's rules, to ask, before stating, are there any nominations from the floor?
Well, it may be appropriate, but they have the write in, and people have been writing in.
Sorry.
Jim?
Since it was a written ballot and the ballots have all been filled out, I think it would be inappropriate to take nominations from the floor because someone would be changing their vote essentially after filling out a ballot.
And we provided the impetus for people to write in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Corresponding secretary. We had several nominations, but Richard Rao received the majority of the votes. Yes, he received 5 out of 15 votes. The other votes were less than that. 5 out of 14.
14, okay.
Recording secretary, Melissa Moore received the majority of the votes for this group, 4 out of 13. Melissa Moore, recording secretary. Second vice president, Eunice Glover, received 7 out of the 13 votes for this group. First Vice President Eric Toomer received 12 votes out of the 13. President Debbie Sherswinski received 7 votes out of the 13 votes for president. Are there any questions? Thank you very much for your participation. And all of this data will go to the recording secretary.
Excuse me. I would like to request a poll of the votes. For that position.
For the president? Okay. Are you asking me to have hands raised for those who voted for the president? Is that correct?
Yes.
Actually, each NPU that voted, if I'm not mistaken, Jim, should be asked, and they should make the declaration.
And for just a second, let me check the bylaws on this.
Okay. That's fine.
It's not going to be in bylaws, it's going to be in Roberts.
Oh, make my life difficult. Well, I guess the question is if we don't specify an election procedure, do we not specify an election procedure in the bylaws?
It reverts back to, I'm sorry, it reverts back to Roberts when it's not a part of your actual bylaws. So
Right, and so you're saying it's not part of the bylaws. I shouldn't bother looking for it.
I'm 99.9% positive that it is not in there.
Okay.
So you refer to Roberts?
I mean, somebody, I'm the numbers thinking, somebody. How many ballots do you have?
We have 13.
So somebody didn't fill out a ballot.
Madam Chair, may I also offer that not all of the chairpersons are still present.
Okay. I thought we counted 14 ballots.
We also have 1 blank ballot where someone did not vote for president. We
So that was.
kept the blanks in each group.
All right. So that means 14.
At this point, is it appropriate for a quorum call to ensure that we do have the numbers still for a polling?
Parliamentary inquiry. What are parliamentary?
Sorry, I'm checking our bylaws with, sorry, I'm checking our bylaws with regard to this. What was the question?
If we are requesting a polling of the vote, then we must have a quorum in order to do that. And if not, then we cannot proceed with that office, if I'm not mistaken.
If someone has left since the ballot, then we can't very well poll them, and yet they could have cast a ballot. Is that your concern?
That is 100% my concern.
Okay, I agree with you on that point. Are you suggesting that we first take a roll call then?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with you on that point as well. Okay, so we do have, we have this document, and this was a question that came up at the executive committee meeting last night, this attachment 1, APAP nominating committee procedures, which appears to be part of our bylaws, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and it specifies a procedure that is the procedure that we just had, which is ballots for each office shall be distributed to all voting members in attendance. The nominating committee will tally the ballots and announce the results. So the procedure as described therein is what we've just been through. I would add, and I think it's a matter of some concern, that there is a separate issue, which I was a bit concerned about during the voting process. And it is, sorry, I need to find this again, because I couldn't remember how it was worded in the bylaws. Members of the nominating committee are not eligible to seek any office for the term that they are appointed to develop and submit nominations to the board. Members of the nominating committee shall conduct the election. So that pertains to you, Eunice, because you're a member of the nominating committee, not?
That's correct.
Okay, and I believe that that is somewhat open to interpretation, in that I don't believe you sought the office that you were just elected to, but I wanted to point that out so we were all aware of it.
Jim, that is why I asked if we could accept nominations from the floor, because I knew that that was actually improper and that we would have to go back and do a nomination from the floor for that position, and at that point we would have to do that separately.
Well, I think because it was a write-in, it was not improper, for the same reason. I mean, essentially, the write-ins were sort of de facto nominations from the floor, was how I would interpret that. But again, I'm just bringing that to the body because I can't remember the exact
I
phrasing.
accept that. I just wanted to clear that up.
Let me say this, I will, based on the numbers that I have, it appeared to be there was a tie. In some kind of way, one ballot got in, somebody did not, they submitted a ballot, but they did not vote. And so,
We really do not necessarily, the official count is the official count. Am I correct?
that's correct.
So whatever the official count is
It's 15.
is the fact. And is all we're trying to do is to have people state who they voted for.
Yeah.
And that is why we need to go through a roll call first.
I think we should do
And I
that.
think we're getting tied up in minutia, but
Of the election.
Agreed?
So that's the three of us.
Agreed again.
Mr. Ross,
Would you like to poll us?
Mr. Ross,
No, yes.
please don't leave.
Don't leave.
No, I believe that you are correct in that, Steve. So Yeah, I think that this would be a decision for the nominating committee, as it is a part of the process.
They control that process, but they do not control the overall process of the bylaws and how Robert's Rules sets forth the declaration of what can and cannot be done. So yes, they control the process by which we're following, but you still have an obligation to meet the litmus test of Roberts when it is not expressly stated in the bylaws. And I believe that any member can call for a polling of the vote.
I'm glad you brought up Roberts. Did anybody in this room bring a copy of Roberts? Our parliamentarian. So that's a good reference question for you.
Yeah, it's 700 pages, so you gotta give me a second.
But in the interim, can we
False facts.
do a quorum count? I'm calling for a quorum count formally.
Ann is going to do the quorum count. Talk to the mic, Mr. Bernie.
My question is, although I was not present for the vote, should I be counted in the quorum?
No. Yes, you can be because Michael's left.
Do you know how Michael voted?
He did vote.
But do you know how he voted?
I'll find out.
Okay?
Just take it to the bylaws and make sure that's appropriate. Yeah.
All right, we're going to do another roll call. NPUA, no one. NPUB, Mr. Rao.
Here.
Is your alternate here? Okay. NPUC. NPUD, Mr. Martin.
I'm here.
And Melissa. NPUE. NPUF, Debbie.
That's still present.
NPUG, Ola Reynolds.
Here.
NPUH. Okay, NPUI, Ms. Eunice Glover. And Jennifer, okay. All right, NPUJ, Ben Dickerson.
Here.
NPUK. NPUL. NPUM, Rashid.
Here.
NPUN. Huh? I'm sorry, were you raising your hand? NPUO. NPUP. NPUQ, Eric Toomer. NPUARA, Antonella Robinson. NPUS. NPUT, Terry Ross. NPUV. Okay. NPUW, Steve Carr. NPUX, Russell Hopkins and Ruben Burmy. NPUY, Dana Scott. NPUZ, Ann Phillips.
Madam Chair, may I ask if Mr.
Hold
Martin,
on one moment. Okay, Ms. Hawkins.
if Mr. Martin will restate the issue previously presented regarding whether there was a conflict between presiding over the nominating process and being also a candidate in the process. And he will
Yeah, sorry, I was reading specifically our bylaws with respect to that, and it is a question that is open to interpretation. So the exact wording of our bylaws, and I'll get back to the, it is, I need to find it again, sorry, I scrolled away from it. Members of the nominating committee are not eligible to seek any office, which is not the same thing as saying that they're not eligible to be elected to that office. And that, I believe, was the distinction that Eric was making with regard to nominations from the floor, and that we were interpreting with regard to rights, that there was no evidence that Eunice had sought this office, and therefore the bylaws were not being violated by those of us who wrote in her name. Is that sufficient clarification?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we did accept that explanation as proper, correct?
There was no objection to that interpretation, and so as you're moved on from the issue, we could put it to a vote if someone objects to it.
Okay.
Debbie?
Debbie Skopczynski, NPUF. When I walked into the meeting room today, I had no intention of running for an election, but I offered my name up to allow the members of this body to have a choice. I am as surprised as anyone in the room that I've received more votes than anyone. I'm not speaking as a candidate. I want to refer you all, though, as a delegate in the bylaws, Jim, under section 5. It refers to attachment 1 of APAB bylaws, and I believe that's the controlling document for the elections that was specified. And the reason why I say that is because we have no other document that supersedes it, which is referred to in the bylaws, that the nominating committee can either update or the bylaws chair can submit to something that already, to replace something that already exists. So whatever's in that document, and my memory is not very good on that, I haven't read it in a couple of years, but it seems to me that one of the characteristics of a vote is that it is confidential, and that so that polling may be inappropriate.
Yeah, I have before me what I believe is the relevant section of Robert's Rules, which is with regard to what is called a roll call vote, which I believe is what Jennifer's calling for. And it states, and I'll quote it, take a vote by roll call, or by yeas and nays, it is also called, has the effect of placing on the record how each member, or sometimes each delegation, votes. Therefore, it has exactly the opposite effect of a ballot vote, which would seem to imply an either or, but it doesn't state it. I mean, I've quoted it exactly. It is usually confined to representative bodies where the proceedings are published, since it enables constituents to know how their representatives voted on certain measures. It should not be used in a mass meeting or in any assembly whose members are not responsible to a constituency. Goes on from there. Essentially, since our bylaws don't specifically govern roll call voting, I believe the correct procedure for us to deal with that would be for Jennifer's call to be taken as a motion requiring a second, and then that motion to be voted on by the body. There is also Eric's point that if the makeup of the body has changed since the election, then it would be absurd. I'm not sure, we just took a roll call, did we not? And are we all still here? Okay, so that at least is taken care of.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
And Madam Chair, members of the board, officially we can no longer talk about anything official because it's 12 o'clock unless we vote to extend the time. So do we have a motion from the floor to extend the meeting?
So,
Second.
And how long do you propose we extend it? 15, 30 minutes, what? 15 minutes? It's been motioned and second. Madam Chair? Madam President? It's been motioned and second.
I'm so sorry. Responding to a text. Okay, so it's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, please raise your hands to extend the meeting.
order.
Mr. Carter, right in the middle
We're
of
about to vote, right?
Then why are you on the phone in the middle of the public meetings?
I'm talking to the council president.
Okay, we have 8, so we have 8.
Motion on the floor, please.
All opposed?
Would you restate the motion?
No.
No.
Any abstentions? Motion carries, that we extended how long? 15 minutes.
I'm sorry, what was the vote, please? Was it 8-3-1? 2-1, abstention.
Madam Chair, we have 2 NPU chair, at least 2 NPU chairs that are gone at this point. Voting members that are We have at least 2 voting members who are now left, Mr. Hopkins as well as, so and delegates, my understanding are, alternate delegates, my understanding are unable to vote, but we have at least.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
The call for a roll call vote is a motion to the body that would need to be seconded on and voted on by the body prior to there actually being a roll call vote. Regardless of whether or not a roll call vote is appropriate under these circumstances, and I see nothing in our bylaws or in Robert's rules that says that it would be either appropriate or inappropriate, except for, as I quoted before, the language in Robert's rules which states it has exactly the opposite effect of a ballot vote. And since our bylaws specify a ballot vote, it seems rather odd that we would then call for a roll call vote, but it doesn't say you can't. So I mean, if a motion has a motion been made?
I'll make a motion that we do a roll call vote.
Yeah, it wasn't stated as a motion, and therefore I was clarifying the point.
Sure.
It's been seconded.
I'm sorry.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
Are we re-voting?
You're just going to say,
No, we're restating what we already did.
right, you're going to say who you voted for.
Point of order, I have just a quick question, for clarification for, people at home as well. What exactly is the issue at hand? Why are we re-voting?
The issue is that there were 15 delegates.
I believe 14.
14 ballots. Somebody,
One was left
one
blank,
was left blank,
so,
and I'm certain of who voted for me. And that number would not be right based on my knowledge.
okay.
Unless somebody changed their vote, and that's possible.
Let me
The ballots don't have their names on it.
because
They don't have their names on it.
it is unofficial, and there is unofficial and there's official. The official count was 7 for a particular candidate, and we did not get the number for the other candidate. 5. Okay. So.
No, I'm sorry, it's actually 6, because there was 14 ballots, 13.
I'm sorry, was there a third candidate that was written in?
No, it can't be 5.
It could be 5 if there was another writing candidate.
There was 7 votes.
Can the chairperson of the nominating committee come forward, please? And this is getting, it's going above and beyond at this point.
To clarify it, there were 5 votes for Jennifer Freeman, 7 votes for Debbie Suszewski.
Your microphone's not on.
And, can you hear me?
Okay, and 1 blank vote. So there were 13 votes altogether.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Your mic was off a portion.
Okay, I'm sorry. Jennifer Freeman, 5 votes. Debbie Suszewski, 7 votes. 1 ballot was blank.
Okay, so were there not 14 ballots in total?
In some cases, we had 14, and others we had 13. And often 13 was accompanied by blank ballots.
Okay, so one ballot for president was not turned in. There were essentially two blanks then, is that correct? Is that?
We have one blank, this is what we have.
One
and what we
blank
have.
was turned in and one ballot that was handed out was not turned in.
That's correct.
Okay.
Just for
I just want to ask a question because when we asked how many ballots we had, we said 13. And then Michael came in and it made it 14. That was what was on the record and recorded. So how did that change? From when you all walked out, how did the ballots come less? They were counted because we
counted
recorded.
everything that we had. Some people may not have even turned in blank ballots. Everything we collected was turned in, and these are the numbers.
At this point, I would ask a reconsideration of the roll call vote. It seems like it is not close. I think that there is a declarative on the proceedings, and I would like a reconsideration of the roll call for...
I'm sorry, we had a motion on the floor which was seconded, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that motion is still on the floor, and we are currently discussing the motion because the question was raised as to what the issue was.
And that is why I'm taking the position that I am to request a reconsideration to see if it can be withdrawn.
Well, once the motion is on the floor, then it would be appropriate under those circumstances, given your opinion, to vote against the motion, and then to either make a substitute motion or to let the matter die.
It can be withdrawn by the person that requested it, is that correct?
My understanding is that the motion, once it is made and seconded, belongs to the body and not to the person who moved it. And the person who moved it was Jennifer. If Jennifer would like to vote against her own motion, she's certainly free to do so.
Let's call it.
So
I want to withdraw my motion.
you want to withdraw your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, he just said we can't withdraw, so move.
I thought I could because I was the one that made the motion.
Well,
Move to vote.
Call the
okay.
question.
I mean, I can look this one up in Robert's rules, but I think the easiest thing to do, Jennifer, would be to simply vote against your own motion.
Got it.
Okay?
Okay, all in favor of a roll call vote, please raise your hands.
Restate the motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, so the motion is to poll the vote from the delegates. Okay, all in favor of polling the vote, please show by raise of hands. Motion dies. Congratulations, Debbie. It has been a pleasure serving you all. And there was a substitute? No. Pleasure serving you all. I had hoped that I would have been able to serve out my full term of 3 years. However, the members have spoken, and I respect that democratic process. And I will always be here to support APAB. I will probably more than likely still be the delegate. And if you all need any help with anything, please let me know. I would like to take the executive privilege since I don't stop serving until December 31st. And that is to continue to offer my skills and expertise in communications, marketing, and PR as it relates to the social media, also the Facebook page that we do have here live, as well as video, that type of thing, and also the vendor relations. So if that's something that the new president would like for me to assist with, I'll be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and on behalf of the body, we want to express our appreciation for the time that you've served, especially stepping up when we unfortunately lost Kathy Richards as president. So thank you for all the work that you've done. And I, for one, value your skills and expertise, and will be calling on your communication skills, because that's one thing I do not have. as NPUF can attest, so thank you. And thank you to the body for showing their support to me, because this is more than I expected today.
Without any further ado, we don't have any more business, so meeting adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And properly seconded, meeting's adjourned. Thank you all so much and have a great weekend.
Family in prayer, he passed on yesterday.
Yes, I am so sorry, I
Yeah,
should have mentioned that.
Right.
And also to the body to let them know that, I've spoken with Ann, who is going to, go ahead and order Peace Lily to send to, his family at the funeral home as soon as we find out all those details. Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Reynolds. Bye-bye.